This is Hunter Muse
And this is Chris Snipes, and you are listening
to The Melt.
As many of you may or may not know, my sons were both fortunate enough to attend Waldorf schools, which I am filled with gratitude about, as it really gave them both a solid foundation of strong character and critical thinking skills. My youngest son's last year to attend this school was 2023, and he would always come home recounting stories that his teacher, Ireneo De Leon, would tell him about growing up in the Philippines, where they had a much different relationship to the unseen world than we do here in the States. Hunter and I threatened to have him on for a couple of years before finally formally inviting him to join us in a sound studio in our local library to record the conversation that you're about to hear. We are also joined by my youngest son, Arvo, who is the one who had Neo as his teacher for the last several years. Hunter starts off the conversation by asking Neo to give us some background on where he grew up.
I grew up in the rural area of the Philippines. It's in the northern part of the Philippines. It's called in Luzon. It's like 5 hours north of Manila, and it's pretty rural. I could imagine my childhood surrounded by green environment because of the trees. There were less houses around us. And I live in this place where it's not isolated, but it's kind of insulated by nature. We have plenty of different kinds of plants, and we have also our domesticated animals with us, from chickens to pigs. We have goats. But at the same time, also there were some wild animals living around us, particularly birds and insects. It is in a plain, just like here in Lawrence, surrounded by rice fields. And when it's nighttime, you could really hear crickets clearly. It's dark. No, houses were few. There were no street lights. The major source of light during the evening is the moon. So that's the environment I grew up.
And did you lived with your mother, father?
Yes. Our family lived in a simple house, originally in a simple house called Nipa Hut. It's a cube house. So it doesn't have rooms or partitions. During daytime, we use the whole space as the living room.
Nice.
And when it's nighttime, we push our pieces of furniture away, and then we will use the mats, and we will sleep in the middle of the house.
And how many people were living in your
We
home?
were five. 3 siblings and my parents.
I love it. That's awesome.
Yes.
And did you grow up hearing folklore stories that were specific to the area?
Yes, yes. We had actually some of the folklore that my father and my grandmother used to tell us weren't even captured by some studies done documenting the
Mhm.
different creatures. Like for example, there was a story about a water buffalo
Mhm.
that if you're going to walk alone, and then when it's 3 o'clock in the evening, I mean in early morning,
Mhm.
and if you would encounter this water buffalo. By the way, water buffaloes are the means of farming.
Mhm.
So all farmers used to have buffaloes, and what it would do is it's going to block the road
Wow.
with its horns.
Mm.
So it's not the longhorn type of cow that you have here in Texas.
Uh-huh.
But again, if you have like a creature that would block the whole street or the whole road.
Mhm.
Yeah. And another story was that there was this uh big crab that would open these fish traps. Like this crab would be like gigantic. It's like you could imagine the size is a big cauldron, the circumference,
Mhm.
and that's the back,
Wow.
excluding its claws.
Wow.
Yeah, so
Holy moly.
but I guess these kinds of stories are also like trying to because they came from our elders. It's like they're told to children like us so that we would observe. Like for example, we have to respect the night or the
Mhm. Yeah.
evening. You know, when people are sleeping, you're not supposed to be in the street
Yes.
playing around, or it's like it was the I would say means of telling children curfew is important.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah, but when I hear people telling it, it's very passionate.
Mhm.
It's not like a make make believe story.
Uh-huh.
You could see people like small children telling fantasies that for them it's real. It's real.
Mhm.
So we didn't take it lightly. Yeah. These are harmless stories.
Sure.
Mhm.
But there are some stories told that could either harm you or could benefit you.
Mhm.
Yeah, like for example, we have stories of it's called the Nono Sapunso. Nono Sapunso is a creature like it's like a dwarf, or it resembles an old man living in an ant hill or a termite hill. That's the
Uh-huh.
ponso is the ant hill, and nono means like ninono. In my language, it means like elders,
Uh-huh.
and actually, these are like they act like guardians of the earth,
Mhm.
of the environment.
Like
Mhm.
earth spirits or something.
Spirits,
Mhm.
yeah. So what they do, like for example, we were told until now I still practice it, that when we go to a new place, for example, you're not used to it, you would say tabi tabi po, or excuse me,
Mm.
or in my language that's Tagalog, tabi tabi po or excuse me, but in my Tagalog, I mean in my language, which is Pangasinense, totally different from Tagalog, we call it bari bari.
Mhm.
Bari bari. It's like also like excuse me.
Mm.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
let us pass by
Mhm.
in peace.
Mm.
Things like that.
Kind of getting permission.
Yeah, getting permission. That's
Mhm.
right. Yeah. And I heard stories about people who did not respect the nuno,
Mhm.
and there were some consequences.
Yeah. How drastic.
Uh when I would say the punishment was severe, for example. My family directly actually directly experienced that through my brother.
Mhm.
My To give you a background also, my grandmother was a healer.
Mhm.
And it I would say like she had a strong connection with the spiritual world. It was Christianized. I think if we were not influenced by Catholicism, it could have been in a different form.
Mhm.
But she was a Catholic, and the way how it was described to me was that she had a connection with the angels.
Mhm.
And she had this cloth with Latin oration in it.
Mhm.
And she would pray for this one. And I also witnessed her every 3 o'clock in the afternoon. She would get her prayer book, and then she would contemplate or pray. And I would see birds like
Mhm.
finches. They would land on her shoulders and they would play around,
Wow.
just like just like the image of Saint Francis, something like that.
Amazing.
Hmm. So she was a healer, and there was a time that my brother, I could remember this. He was second grade, so he is reaching the 9-year change,
Mhm.
and he was very, very playful, of course, adventurous.
Mhm.
And he and our cousin were walking from school going home. And there was this place, it's called Kawayan Kiling.
Mhm.
Kawayan means bamboo. Kiling, it's called bamboo killing because you have to look back. Killing means looking back,
Mm.
because there was this huge ant hill there.
Mm.
So there were different legends about that place. It was talking about a family who got flooded, and they were victims of flood, and all of them got drowned,
Mm.
and they were so mad because nobody saved them, something like that.
Right.
So sometimes when you would pass by, you could hear the cries of this spirit of the asking for help. But my brother and my cousin ignored that.
Wow.
They ignored it. But my grandmother already warned them not to play, not to fool around.
Mhm.
But they did. So what they did, oh, it wasn't true. And then they got this stick and stuck it in the ant hill. And then,
Wow.
yeah. And then when they went home, they got fever. They got sick mysteriously. Both of them at the same time.
Interesting.
Wild.
Now, my grandmother had a way to heal you, and using an egg.
Mhm.
And then I don't know the importance of a coin, but the coin is equivalent to the dime here in the United States. We
Uh-huh.
have a 10 centavo coin, so it's the dime.
Yeah.
And she would recite a prayer, and then put or lay the 10 centavo coin on a saucer.
Mhm.
And then what she would do is she would make the egg stand on the coin.
Wow.
And it was so amazing because I tried it a lot of times. Like I was trying to debunk her or what, but it's really difficult. And you're talking about a 70-year-old woman.
Wow.
I'm sure you can think of the coordination already.
Yeah, exactly.
Making an egg stand on a 10 centavo coin. Uh so so after making the prayer, she would make the sign of the cross, break the egg, and then put the egg yolk, and then the egg white
Mhm.
on a glass filled with water.
Uh-huh.
And then you could imagine that if you put the broken egg, on what I mean, in a glass with water, you could see some forms.
Yeah.
Right.
And she would interpret that.
Oh, wow. Okay. Like divinate from it.
Yes. And you could imagine, like, right now I could tell you, there will be like circles making this human form.
Mm-hmm.
Wild.
Right? The bubble will do human
Right.
form.
Mhm.
But the amazing thing is this, that it would not make more than who were involved in that.
No kidding.
So for example, when she interpreted that, she saw two small bubbles with, small bubbles with like a human form,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's a big one. So the only three.
Right.
And it always amazed me, like, how could that be? What's the chance?
Mm-hmm.
And then she would say, these are the two. Yeah, this is your brother and this is your cousin.
Uh-huh.
But she was talking to my mother, of course. And this is the spirit. And the spirit is angry.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And the resolution would be, it depends on the resolution. Like, for example, because the final part of the ritual was for you to drink some of the water.
Mm-hmm.
She would say, like, it's like a reconciliation, or like there was like the sincerity for you to connect with the spirit.
Mhm.
Or it depends, like after drinking it, she would even ask you to do more. Like, for example, you have to offer this, you have to go back
Mm-hmm.
and then bring these things. Like, maybe you could bring chicken blood,
Mm-hmm.
and then offer it there, something like that.
So how did she learn? Did this come from a lineage?
You said Christianized.
Mhm.
Christianized from what?
Well, I think these things existed before the Spaniards came to the Philippines.
Right.
There were stories of the shamans already.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they were connected to nature, and everything has a spirit.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like pantheism type
Mhm, yeah.
of belief.
Rocks and
Yes, yeah, there were always spirits. Now, uh, and in Christianity, usually these things are ignored.
Mm-hmm.
But with the Filipinos embrace Christianity, this things is still was part of the culture.
Mm-hmm.
It's really deeply embedded, but at the same time, uh, there was already like um intermingling of Christian belief. Like, for
Right.
example, you have to ask for the help of Saint Michael. For example, you have to ask help from the Trinity to
Mhm.
defeat anything that is bad, bad spirits or bad creatures.
So did her healing come from the lineage of her family? Like, did she learn
No.
things from her mother?
No.
How did she come up
Well,
with
the story as I could remember was that she was chosen. It was just an incident. And in fact, she was labeled as crazy or witch before, in the beginning,
Sure.
because she would do some things that were like, for example, she would pray and she would kneel. There's like this uh there was even this time when her healing power was very powerful, but she was warned by her companions not to go near this person.
Mm-hmm.
It's a man, because this man was unclean.
Interesting.
But if you're in a village, you cannot avoid to bump, with
Yeah.
each other,
Yeah,
So
exactly.
there was this wedding where she attended, and unfortunately, that man was there.
Mm-hmm.
So while she was trying to exit the event, she came across with this man that bumped their shoulder, And the punishment for that was she had to kneel walk, and you're talking about dirt road.
Oh my gosh.
And I could give you like an approximate distance. Uh, highway going to Prairie Moon.
Uh-huh.
What's that? Highway 40,
Mm-hmm.
and then going to the creek. That's the distance of the house of my grandmother, and the distance that she would kneel walk. And of course, after that, her knees would be bleeding,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
so people thought that she was
So
crazy or what.
who was doing the punishing, or was that just an assumed thing?
It was like she wasn't punished. It's like in order for you to win them back, that you should show your sincerity.
Gotcha.
Like what do you call that? Self-flagellation,
Yeah,
yeah.
something like that.
Mhm.
Like the Japanese, for example, if you're a Yakuza member, that you have to offer if you commit something against the organization in the Yakuza, that you have to offer your finger, you have to cut it, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But this one was, I think, even worse.
So was she the only person in her village that had these powers, or were there others?
I heard that there was somebody who was trying to imitate her,
Interesting.
but the result wasn't positive.
Mm.
And there was like a asking for forgiveness from her, from this, I mean, to her, from this woman, because she was like faking it. Yeah, she was trying to imitate my grandmother, but it wasn't. I would say it couldn't be emulated. It had to be handed down to someone.
Okay.
There were stories like even I experienced it according to my mother. Again, there was time when I couldn't remember these events, but when I was like young, like maybe 5 months old, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I had like maybe an allergic reaction, if you're going to use the modern language.
Mm-hmm.
But my neck was swollen and I couldn't swallow.
Mm.
And 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 and, and she healed me. According to her, according to the story, my mother might have hurt again a spirit.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're hurting a spirit, sometimes they don't directly punish you. There's like maybe your loved one, and I was the one. Yeah. So I experienced that. My brother experienced it, and I also this one is really when she died. So one of the rules of my grandmother when she was a healer, uh was for you not to drink cold water in the evening. You had to protect your warmth.
Interesting.
That was like a rule for her.
Mm-hmm.
So don't drink water from the refrigerator. We didn't have refrigerator during that time, but even if we're we didn't have, we have to do like a lukewarm. In fact, if you're going to serve her water, she's going to dip her finger in the water to test it.
Mm-hmm.
And I showed that it's cold, so you have to mix it with warm water.
Mm-hmm.
But on the night, I could vividly remember this. And this was in 1984, October. Yeah, actually, her death anniversary was just like 2 weeks ago.
Mm.
40 years ago.
Yeah,
Yeah. Wow.
I mean 2 weeks ago.
Mhm.
October 20, October, no, she died October 13, so it's almost a month already.
Mm.
So the story was that because she was old and my aunt was only living with her, sometimes one of us siblings would stay with her during the night. And
Mhm.
it happened to be me during that time. And she said in the middle of the night, she said, "Please wake up. I'm hungry. Please give me food."
Mhm.
Okay, so the snack that we had was crackers. If you're familiar with the brand, I think you don't have it here, but it's like a saltine. It's
Oh,
a
yeah.
saltine type of
Mhm.
Yes.
cracker. And then we went back to sleep. But then at around 3 o'clock, she woke up again. And then she said, "I'm not feeling well.
Mhm.
Please call your mom." And we'll my parents' house is just like a stone throw away.
Mhm.
So I called my mother, and then she would say, she said, like, "I don't know, I don't understand, but I feel weak. Call your sisters," as if like she was calling everybody already.
Mhm.
And if she did something like that before, everybody was on alert
Mhm.
because she was like the matriarch of our village.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Uh-huh. Even our neighbors woke up during that time, and then they came. And then, but before they came, she requested for cold water.
Wow.
And then my mother said, "No, that's one of your, red flags."
Mhm.
So I couldn't give. "Please give me cold water, I
Mm.
beg you." And then my mother adamantly refused. And when my aunt who was living like farther from us came, and she was conscious, but she wasn't regaining her strength, and we didn't really know what was happening.
Mhm.
She was just feeling weak.
Mhm.
And so we laid her on the bed, and then people were surrounding her, were trying to massage her.
Mhm.
I'll tell you the secret of the massage because that's very, very important. We're trying to massage her, and then all of a sudden, I was there, and she said, like, they've arrived. And my mother said, "Who?"
Mhm.
And at that moment, there was this gust of wind,
Wow.
and our window it's like a jalousie. I don't know if you're familiar with jalousie windows. It's like when you open, there were this small small stacks of glasses,
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
and then when you close it, it becomes like flat.
Like
Yes.
blinds.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like kind of
Yeah.
blinds.
Mhm.
Yeah. And then when she said they've arrived, and then my mother's asked who, and there's this gust of wind that closed the window, and it broke. One of the jalousies got broken.
Oh, uh-huh.
And then that was her last words.
Huh.
Those were her last words. They've arrived.
Wow.
And later on, we've just realized what she meant by that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Was
So
that was that the grandmother that died from
no, no, no,
Okay,
that's
okay.
different.
Gotcha.
That was my mother.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, yeah. So this was in 1984, October 13, 1984. Uh,
And when did her husband die?
her husband died during the Japanese occupation.
Wow.
Okay, and that's very interesting because during that time she was already a healer.
Mhm.
But my grandfather, somebody told the Japanese soldiers that he had a gun and he was a member of the resistance.
Mm.
Huh.
So he jumped from the window when the Japanese were coming, and I think he fractured his leg by doing that,
Mhm.
and that caused infection because
Mhm.
during that time it was hard to come out,
Mhm.
and the Japanese, according to the stories, they were ruthless.
Mm.
Like, it's not only you, but the whole family if you're not going to be honest with us or if you're hiding something from us. So somebody reported it to the Japanese. But when when the Japanese couldn't find my grandfather, they went back to that person who made the report
Mhm.
and they water tortured him.
Oh
Oh,
my
wow.
god.
They water tortured him, and later on, he became so sick
Mm.
after the water torture, and the only way for him to restore his health was to apologize to my grandmother.
No kidding.
Yeah.
So the place he jumped, your grandfather jumped, was from her home,
Yeah,
from their
yeah,
home?
from their home. Yeah,
My
he tried
God.
to escape.
But they caught him.
No, they weren't able to. No,
So they never found him.
they what's this? They did not find him, but he died because of I think infection.
Infection.
Mhm.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah.
Now, were there healers like your grandmother in other villages, or was this very specific to your family's village?
As far as I could remember during that time, that's why when my grandmother died, she was like a superstar.
Hmm.
She recorded the most number of people who attended the funeral of an individual because I
Wow.
think she was unique.
Amazing.
Yeah, there were people coming from as far as Metro Manila, which is 5 hours away from different parts of Luzon to come to the place and ask for healing.
Wow.
And she wasn't the one that kind of healer like you have to give donation or
Mhm.
what. No. She wasn't like that.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, if you give her something, it could be eaten and it could be shared by everybody,
Right.
but no money.
Wow.
Uh-huh.
Well, the remnants of the sort of the pre-Catholicism times, was that something that permeated your entire culture or just people like your
Yeah.
grandmother?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's common. It's common among Filipinos. Even until now, we still have this pantheistic, like consciousness.
Mhm.
Yeah.
The spirit world is
Spirit world.
viewed in everything.
Yes, healers. It's still there. That's why holistic healing sometimes is very, very popular in the Philippines. There's even this part in the Philippines in Luzon that they would like it to be the central, like it would be like the central uh place for all healers around the world.
Wow.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Feel
Yeah.
free to jump in at any time, Arvo. Just if there's stories that maybe he brought up in class or something that you want to know more about.
Which
Yeah, there's one story about didn't she stop a possession?
yes, but that's different. Before that, I'll go back to that person who uh who reported my grandfather.
Mm-hmm.
So that guy, he had strike too, and the second strike was uh my grandmother had a garden.
Mm-hmm.
Their original house was like again a cube house with stilts,
Mm-hmm.
and underneath it's like garden.
Mm.
And she had this pumpkin or squash
Mm-hmm.
that was already ready to
Mm-hmm.
be harvested.
Mhm.
But one day it disappeared. It disappeared. And she said like, "Oh no. Who could have taken it? I hope they're well and blah blah blah." But after 3 days, that guy came to the house and asked for forgiveness because all the people who partook in eating that squash got food poisoning,
Wow.
and they were sick, and the only way again for them was to tell the truth. And
Interesting.
yes,
Wow.
it's like if you want to get healed, you have to be honest, and
I like that.
you have to be accountable for what you did,
Mm.
because most of the time, which is really true. In fact, you cannot be set free about something if you're lying and if you're not truthful.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Before the witchcraft, another interesting thing that again I witnessed it was when my grandmother healed someone. She healed this person. Uh, he's like maybe in his 50s.
Mhm.
He came because he was complaining about a disease in his private part was
Mhm.
swollen,
Mhm.
and he couldn't understand why.
Mhm.
And my grandmother said that he had to tell the truth.
Uh-oh.
He had to confess something to his wife.
Mhm.
Wow.
Oh.
He was so upset about that. Like this is false. This is what's this this is fake, or
Mhm.
this is not true. So he went away, and my grandmother said, "Okay." 3 weeks later, because that guy went to as far as Metro Manila to the best hospitals,
Mhm.
but they couldn't explain what was happening to him. They gave him the strongest antibiotics, like again, 2 weeks, like 15 days.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Antibiotics good for 10 days or at least 1 week, right?
Right.
But the swelling did not subside. In fact, it became worse.
Ooh.
Yeah, so he came back. And then right there and then there was a confession that happened. And this guy was crying. And my grandmother said, "So I think you're ready. You're ready to be healed." And my grandmother would not use like extraordinary things like
Mhm.
crystals or what. No. She would pick some herbs in our garden.
Uh-huh.
In fact, there was this citrus leaves that if you're feeling nausea, or if you're about to if you're having motion sickness,
Mhm.
Mhm.
said, "Just smell this." Of course, she would say some oration, or
Mhm.
Mhm.
then smell it, and then you'll feel better.
Wow.
Uh, so she got this. She got this herb, and then she put it in water, and then drink it,
Mhm.
and then go home and wash your private part with boiled guava leaves as an antiseptic. So
Right.
that's it. After 3 weeks, he came back and he was well.
Wow.
So did he confess? Did he confess to his wife?
Yes, right there and then.
Wow.
Some infidelity or
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I witnessed those things. So, uh, there was a time that when I went to college, I was starting to debunk it.
Mhm.
But there was like a renaissance to my consciousness about it, because like I couldn't really explain what they
Yeah.
were.
Mhm.
Exactly. Well,
And I had to go back to those experiences, because those experiences were, I would say, a kind of revelation
Mhm.
Mhm.
about the realities of the spiritual world. Yeah.
It's interesting that she was using just normal
Yeah.
herbs, and there was
Mhm.
nothing really magical about what she was using. It was her energy that she
Mhm.
was transmitting through
intention.
people.
Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
That shows that she had power because she was doing something that no one else was
Mhm.
capable of doing.
Mhm. There was also like again, if you're sick, and if she tried, there would be like different steps. If this does not work, okay, this will be the next step. And I've experienced a step wherein she's going to burn different kinds of materials, from sheep wool, incense, what else? Oregano leaves,
Mhm.
different kinds. Camphor,
Mhm.
sprinkle it there. Of course, these things really smell so good,
Mhm.
and they produce thick smoke. And what you have to do is you have to cover yourself with a blanket, and then try to, try to breathe them all in.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But of course, it's going to be warm,
Mhm.
and you perspire a lot. And then after perspiring, you feel so good.
You get the toxins out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, but of course, there's always an oration. She would recite it in Latin or.
Mhm.
Before you get to what he was asking about really quickly, what made you want to debunk it? What motivated that?
I think it has something to do with the consciousness, of a developing child. Yeah,
Yeah, sure.
I wanted to find the truth.
Push back.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
and during that time, I was in the seminary, and I was really like, you're already studying concrete things. I was also influenced by atheism.
Mhm.
I studied atheism, and I said like, oh, these things may not be true. These are all accidents, and there were times that I would tell my mother, and she would say like, don't say that because if your grandmother wasn't there, maybe you're not here. Those were her words, and
Mhm.
then that's when she would tell me some other experiences. But these things were coming from her. I didn't witness, but
Mm.
what I told you, like for example, the when he healed that man, uh, I was there
Mhm.
and I witnessed it.
Mhm.
And when my brother got sick for not respecting the nono sa punso, I was there. I
Mhm.
witnessed that. Yeah. Now, going to the sorcery, there's a phenomenon in the Philippines called mangkukulam, kulam or mambabarang.
Mhm.
Depends where you are. Although some people they say that barang is more powerful than kulam. It's like voodoo,
Mhm.
witchcraft.
Mhm.
Of course, with the using they use this witch doctors or mangkukulam would get something from you. It could be a picture, it could be a piece of cloth,
Mhm.
or it could be a what's this like they or it could be an encounter. Like if I'm going to touch this person, I can cast this spell on this
Mhm.
person. So my aunt was a victim of that, and the kind of spell that was put on my aunt was cold. She would just feel so cold.
Mm.
And then we're living in a tropical country, and the only time that we would experience cold weather is from December to January because that's when the northern winds would go
Mhm.
south
Mhm.
and it would go to the Philippines. And that's why December and January it's cold.
Mhm.
Uh, but this wasn't during that time. I think it was even like summer, and she was really cold. Like if you're going to touch her, her hands are cold, and the only way how to counteract that was now my grandmother was dead during that time already, but there was like I think she told my family that if we needed something to counteract things like this because it was existing even before
Mhm.
that they had to call one of our relatives. He didn't really have the power, but he knew how to do things. There are different steps.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Like for example, they started by getting matchsticks, and the matchsticks will be inserted on the tip of the thumb. You just put it here, and my aunt would be screaming because it was so hot.
On the with the wooden end
No, no,
underneath
no,
or
the
the flint end?
the flint end.
Wow.
Yes, and she would be like, she would grow wild, like, "Oh, it's so hot! Please remove it." And her voice would become different.
Huh.
Yeah, and other men had to be called because I and my brother we were still young,
Mhm.
so our neighbors will be called, and they had to restrain her. They had to hold her really tightly because she didn't like the feeling.
Mhm.
Mhm.
But it was not actually my aunt because the connection of the mangkukulam or the witch doctor If she would let go, she could.
Mhm.
But then when she put the spell again, reactivate it, her spirit is connected. In fact, it was she who was saying all those things that she was feeling hot.
Interesting.
Yeah. And there were different attempts that sometimes, oh, we lost her. Meaning to say the spell was gone,
Right.
and then my aunt would ask like, what happened? Yeah. And then maybe 2 days later, 3 days later, the spell would come back again, and she would feel cold until one time that what's this? They did more things because they thought that the spirit was able to connect with my aunt really strongly this time. And so not just the match, they said like after the match we're going to get what's this? We're going to get we will whip you with this whip was made from a from the branch of a palm tree.
Mhm.
If you're going to skin it, the
Mhm.
fiber, something
Yeah.
like that, and then you're going to and it's not even like a violent whipping.
Mhm.
They would just whip softly. Next time, if you're not gonna tell us who you are, we're going to make it harder. And then, no, please have mercy. All those things. I said, like, oh, it was like a comic in the eyes of a child,
Sure.
but it was really serious.
Hmm.
Now, the straw that broke the camel's back was when the mangkukulam was warned that if she's not going to reveal who she was, they're going to use the tail of a what do you call this creature? Manta ray or
Oh,
stingray?
yeah.
Stingray.
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
They're going to use the tail of a stingray to whip her. And if that happens, the damage would be even greater.
Mhm.
Mm.
Like she would have marks, things like that, you know. And so when that warning was given, after a few minutes, the mangkukulam came to the house and asked forgiveness. And years passed by before she went back to the village, to our place.
So why did this Mankukulam
Mhm.
enchant your aunt?
Jealousy, or maybe I think there was an encounter wherein she felt ashamed,
Hmm.
things like that.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah. But mangkukulam is again, because they could put this spell on somebody. There are some people who are for hire mangkukulam,
Oh,
but they would say, if the spirit of this person can't be broken, you have to face the consequences. You will be the one.
wow.
Wow.
Yeah. So, like for example, if you hate somebody,
Mhm.
you wanted to cast a spell on this someone.
Mhm.
Okay, I'll do that. For how much? And, you negotiate the price, blah blah blah, and so on. And then okay. But if I will fail to do these things, maybe she would feel something like that. Are you willing to accept the responsibility that it will be on you? So there's a consequence for it.
I'm curious about the man who your grandmother encountered. Was this part of the Mankukulam spirit, or was this
No,
something else entirely?
no, something else entirely. It was different.
So, how did they know that this man had bad energy?
Oh, because the companions of my grandmother told her that I don't go to this person. This person was unclean.
Wow.
Yeah, when they say unclean, it's not just physical, but it's
Mhm.
really spiritual. Maybe
Yeah.
he was doing something, fishy, or in my language, it's sinful.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, and that's kind of like the Jewish, like if you have a leper, don't don't go near a person, but that's physical, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so something like that.
Um, didn't you have like when you were sick, didn't you see the devil?
Yes, I did. I did when I was young. So I was like I think I just turned 5 years old during that time. But of course, right now, I have to be open to all possibilities with that explanation, because if you have a high fever, you also have delirium, you have hallucinations.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So I might be hallucinating during that time.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. As a 5-year-old, I had no exposure to what the devil looks like.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
I had no exposure.
Mhm.
I mean, it's like what? Yeah, I couldn't remember watching a film that depicted the devil during that time. All that I know was that when I was young, I was hooked with Western movies.
Mhm.
Mhm.
The Lone Ranger, the
Mhm.
Ren Tin Tin.
Mm.
Oh, yeah.
Those movies were the ones that were shown because we only had one channel, one channel, and the news was even in English,
Mm.
Oh,
and I didn't have that. So when I saw it's like this creature grinning, lying down with horns, two horns. She, what is this? Like, it's like the face of Joker. You know what I
Uh-huh.
mean? Like that. But it had a tail, and it was red, and it was smiling at me. And the funny thing about it, when I said it and I was screaming, what's the my father, who was there, he was also so scared. Like, go and get the machete. What? Go get the machete. Some people were saying like, go find a cat. Because
cat.
because they believed that the devil was afraid of the cat. The cat
Hmm.
had this sense of seeing the devil, and when the cat sees the devil, that it would scratch it, it would attack it.
Wow.
Again, another what's this, superstitious or
Sure.
folklore.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Huh.
a thing in
So
the
what was the
Philippines.
body language of this creature? Was it, like, trying to attack you or
No,
just sitting in the
no,
corner?
it was in the corner of our room, and it was like there was like a small opening. If you make a house, and then if you're going to put the roof, there are beams,
Mhm.
and the beams attached to the wall of the house. There's a certain space,
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
and that's where I saw it. And it wasn't even standing; it was lying. It's like its body was inserted in that space.
Wow.
Crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was laughing at me.
Interesting.
He was laughing at me, but again, it could be a hallucination.
But
Though the question was, I've never seen, or I had never seen a picture of the devil before that incident.
Interesting.
Yeah,
And then you saw one later and went, that's what I saw.
yeah,
Yeah.
yes,
Crazy.
yes,
and
yes.
then how did you get rid of it? How did your
It
family
it disappeared when it disappeared when people went frantic, and then again my father was saying, "Get the machete, whoever, I'm going to," but he was so scared leaving.
Was
He looked as if he was tough, but he was really scared to the bones. But again, some people are like, "Where's the cat? Where's the cat?" And then when they got the cat, when they got the machete, it disappeared. Like, where is it? Where is it now? And I couldn't see it anymore.
So they were just going on your word that you saw it. They didn't see it
They didn't.
themselves.
No, they
Okay.
didn't
Gotcha.
see it themselves. It's just
So your grandmother was your mother's
mother.
mother?
Yes,
And what about your father's mother? Did she have any
I
of these
wasn't. I
experiences?
wasn't able to. I wasn't able to see my grandparents. my father's side.
Mm.
Yeah, he was old when he married my mom, and their age gap was like 26 years old.
Wow.
Yep.
In the remnants of the pre-Catholicism culture, were there any sort of medicinal plants that were used to help induce visions or certain states of mind, or were there shamans using plants to do things like that?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, there were. Again, for my grandmother, oregano is very, very important.
I'm thinking more like magic mushrooms and
There,
like hallucinogenic or mind-altering.
I'm not aware.
Gotcha.
I don't know. Yes.
Just curious.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, uh, my my mother told me also that my grandmother had the intention to pass the healing power to my mother.
Uh-huh.
But after my mother witnessed everything,
Mhm.
she said, I think it's too much for me to fill in.
Hmm.
So what my grandmother did was there was only one healing ceremony that she handed it to my mother, handed it down, and that was with the egg.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. And my wife witnessed it. So yes.
Did that, witnessing all that and hearing about all of that and having it be a part of your young life, did that affect how you see healing, or where you go to for medicinal things?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, of course.
Cool. Do
Yeah.
you tend to go more naturalistic as opposed to go straight for the pharmaceuticals, or depends?
If I have my way, consulting healers who are connected with the spirit, I would do that. Yeah. And of course there are modern ways how to do healing right now.
Mhm.
But I think this phenomenon of spiritual healing is really important, and it should not be taken for granted.
Mhm.
Again, I've experienced it. My brother took it for granted, did not listen, and I've seen the effects.
I'm curious about if you had any experiences with your grandmother after she died. Did you ever have any dreams
Oh
of
yes,
her?
this is interesting. So when she died, it was only my aunt. So I had two aunties in the house, but the other one was still working in Metro Manila. So she would just go there maybe once in 2 weeks. But my other auntie, she was the one left behind. And so what happened was they would invite they would invite people from our neighbors, and most of them were men,
Mhm.
you know. And this was real. There's there's what we call novena, or 9 days.
Mhm.
9 days of prayer
Mm.
after the death.
Mhm.
And on the seventh day, after the prayer, so we went to sleep,
Mhm.
we were like, maybe there were like 10 people sleeping in that house.
Mhm.
And in the in maybe approaching 3 o'clock. 3 o'clock is very important because they say that's when the portal is opening.
Mm-hmm.
I don't
Interesting.
know about that, but and somebody what's this? Somebody made coffee. You could hear from downstairs the sound of the spoon hitting the when you
Uh-huh.
stir.
Yep.
Mhm.
And in the morning there was coffee, and
But nobody.
nobody was there. Nobody was there. So again, they after the novena, like my mother and her sisters would say, "We hope you rest in peace. We love you." All these things, But here's the thing, which is that's why it's very connected, with my relationship with anthroposophy right now, believing in the spirit world.
Mhm.
Because Steiner had this indication of different layers of the human being, different bodies, that when we die, the physical body, is dead. It becomes a mineral,
Mhm.
but there are different layers of ourselves that would still roam around.
Mhm.
That would still roam around. So I think he was talking about like the next layer, which is called the etheric body.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That when you die, the physical body is there, but the etheric body, you can still feel it.
Mhm.
And then after that, the astral body, you can still feel it. And I said like, whoa, yeah, it's it does he is he affirming what my experiences before?
Mhm.
Uh, so it's a question,
Mhm.
but he had those indications. Yeah.
What led you to anthroposophy and Steiner?
Oh, it was I mean, there was this German speaker who was invited to our school and then gave us about the indications of Steiner in the pedagogical world.
Mhm.
And I could remember that the only thing that I applied from that talk was put the classes that would require movement and exertion of the will in the afternoon, not in the morning. In the morning you do all the thinking,
I
but
agree.
then in the afternoon you do all the working, woodwork, movement, handwork, whatever. That's why main lesson first, and then after that you do all those things.
Mhm.
Yeah, so that's the thing that led me there. But um, the more I read about Steiner when it comes to his indications about the spiritual world, I'm going back to my
Mm.
old experiences. Yeah.
What do you think happened to your grandmother's energy when your mother did not accept her role as
hmm
being the healer in that lineage? Where do you think that energy went?
I I don't really know. Uh, as far as I know, when she left, when my grandmother left, there was, yeah, I would even say that things did not become good for the family.
Mm.
Before she was a she was a unifying force.
Mhm.
Uh the children would agree with one another. There were sibling rivalries, of course, but
Mhm.
whatever my grandmother would say, the sisters, all of them were sisters. They would unite and then they would respect each other. In the village, they also consulted her,
Mm.
with some matters, to make the village better. There was every procession is this is procession of the saints. When we have fiesta,
Mhm.
there's a procession, and every time we had a procession, they would always stop in the house of my grandmother, so
Mm.
as a sign of
Mm.
respect.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah.
But after that, yeah, my aunts quarreled with one another because of inheritance.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, God.
Yeah, and that destroyed the relationships. Nobody was able hold that to hold that, I would say, like, uh serenity,
Mm.
that peaceful, you know uh peaceful environment. Yeah. The fights were everywhere about inheritance. And in fact, right now, all of those were gone. My two aunts died poor.
Mm.
One of them actually belittled the inheritance that my grandmother gave her, but I said, like, if that happened to me, my goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also, but even until now, if you want to go to our place, they would ask you, "Oh, where are you going? Which place?" "Oh, I'm going to Epipanya or Panyang, because that's my grandmother's name." The tricycle drivers know exactly where you're going to go.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah. So our road is Nagilayan Road, but I think if that happened, in modern days, the Congress or maybe the council would pass a resolution to make that road Epifania.
Mhm.
Wow.
Yeah.
So does your wife Narisa have any experience that was
Yes.
similar to your experiences in her lineage?
Yes. Oh, I don't know, because in the South also they have different experiences, but my wife's experience with the supernatural has something to do with tarot cards.
Really?
Interesting.
Or fortune telling.
Hmm.
She got it from her mother.
Mhm.
Yes.
Does she read tarot?
I I I don't know,
Mhm.
but she's always interested, and
Mhm.
yeah.
Is there any belief in reincarnation? Whether that be, I know not in Catholicism, but
Mhm.
in the beliefs of the Philippines in general?
There's no.
No.
As far as I know, a reincarnation, if there is, it could have been an Indian influence.
Mhm. Yes. Yeah.
Yes. Could
Hindu.
be an
Yeah.
Hindu influence, yeah. But I couldn't recall, but there were some like epics or heroic stories wherein the character will die and then will be resurrected.
Mm.
Yeah, things like that.
I wonder how your children relate to these stories. Have you shared your stories with Irene? I know in class
Yeah,
she probably heard. Do you think that that gives her some form of reverence for your family's lineage?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. But sometimes she would say like, "Whoa, oh, really?" She would ask. It's coming from wonder, like,
Mhm.
how true is it? And
Yeah.
this is the age where you are in, really trying to find whether something is true or not.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we would share things to you, and it's up to you to find things out. You know. Yeah.
Do you take them back to the Philippines? Have they ever been back?
We haven't been there since we came here. This year we were planning to go back, but since baby came,
Mhm.
Yes.
yeah, I said like we have to postpone for another year maybe.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
It would
Yeah.
be so interesting to see how, Irene takes to that environment to see maybe if she feels any of that residual energy from your grandmother.
Yeah, right now actually that place is like it's like an abandoned place.
Oh.
Yeah. I bought the house from my aunt, and nobody took good care of it. Last time that my brother sent me a picture, it's already dilapidated.
Mhm.
And yeah, our ancestral home is torn into pieces, little by little, as years go by.
That's too bad.
My brother did not take good care of it. And again, the fruit, the trees, all of them were gone already. The soil, which used to be really fertile, that's why we had all. If you talk about a tropical rainforest,
Mhm.
go to our place. Even from a distance, you know exactly that that is the place of Epifania, because it is surrounded by different fruit trees, from mango, star apple, citrus fruits, everything. Yeah, but now they're all gone. It's even flooded right now.
Because she's gone.
How
Like
long had that been in your family, that piece of land?
according to my mother, my grandmother and my grandfather, her parents, acquired those properties.
Wow.
And in fact, when I was young, describe I would describe our family that we were abundantly gifted.
Mm.
Yes, if you need fish, fish pond is there, just get fish. If you need vegetables, it's just growing everywhere. It is true.
Yeah.
And I could remember when I was young, early in the morning, I and my brother would collect mangoes
Uh-huh.
that were ripened up in the tree. Now bats were everywhere. Fruit
Mhm.
bats were everywhere, and they were huge fruit bats. And they would try to bite on these mangoes, and then it would not hold tight on the stem. They will just fall. So just like apples, we will just collect this. Of course, we had to clean and then remove the
Uh-huh.
portion that was bitten by fruit bats,
Mhm.
and we had our snacks. Yeah, there was no day that we were hungry when we were in that place during that time. Uh, it also, I think, built, it developed my healthy consciousness and my healthy cognitive abilities. Actually, if I would relate it to that, like for example, mathematics. I learned how to do mathematics, the four fundamental operations, really well when I even before I went to first grade, and I was in the first grade before I turned 6 years old, because we would sell fruits.
Mhm.
And then that's when I would count,
Mm.
like it's so with money. That's
Mm.
how I learn, and that's how I learned mathematics.
And how
Yeah.
many people were living in that village?
Before, I would say that almost all people there were related to my grandmother. They were cousins, first, second degree cousins of my mother. And they knew each other. Like no matter how far,
Mm.
when there's a wedding or there's birthday, you have to walk miles and miles to invite
Mhm.
someone. Yeah. And everybody knew each other.
Mhm.
Maybe I would say like this was in the 80s. I'm not so sure, but I could give you an estimate. Maybe like 100 families.
That is
Mm.
incredible.
Mm-hmm.
So did everyone leave that area after your grandmother died and move?
No, no. People even came in, and then some people, had children, and then right now it is I would say overcrowded now. Houses were built everywhere now, so the rice fields that I that I treasured so much when I was young, because when there was snowstorm, our my window was facing this rice field. I would say like uh acres and acres of rice fields, that when the wind blew, you're like having a wave of green. Just like wheat, when
Yeah,
wind
yeah.
blows, it's like,
Mhm.
but this is rice. That's all gone. The rice fields were already turned into commercial properties.
Wow.
And the bad thing was that they did not make any drainage system.
Mm.
So the water that used to be caught by the rice fields
Mhm.
had to go somewhere. And
Uh-huh.
that's why my place right now with my brother, our house have been submerged underwater for the past three months.
Wow.
Mhm. It even reached more than knee deep. Now maybe it could still submerge your whole feet if you would walk there. So yeah, yeah.
I wonder if the folklore that exists in these rural areas also exist in Manila.
There are there are what's this? The folklore in my place is not uncommon. It's common to other places also.
Mhm.
Yeah. Believing in spirits, believing in paranormal activities.
Mhm.
That's common. Yeah.
So
Like for example, when you talk about the spirits of the dead called molto, we call it molto.
mhm.
Molto is like ghosts, ethereal creatures. Usually with this uh white background, things like that.
Mhm.
So that's common everywhere, and usually it depends on the experience of that person, of the owner of that spirit, how it was treated. It could be violent, or it could be somebody who is calm and kind. So I have a joke, what they asked me, what will be your, if you encounter a multo, for example, what will you do? I would say, like, maybe I would ask that multo to give me the lucky number for the lotto. Yes. I don't know how I'm going to react, really, whether I'm going to be afraid or not.
Mhm.
Yes.
Are there any cryptids or like Yeti or Sasquatch or anything like that?
We had those creatures in other parts of the Philippines.
Mhm.
There's like a counterpart of Bigfoot.
Uh-huh.
There's also, like, for example, fairies.
Mhm.
The fairies are, in my language, called diwata.
Uh-huh.
Diwata, I think, came from, it's a derivative of Sanskrit called divata.
Mhm.
Divata means gods.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah. And usually I mean, it's not usually. Diwatas are depicted as female, attractive female guardians of nature. And one of the most famous Diwatas in the Philippines is the guardian of Mount Makiling. Mount Makiling is, when you're traveling in North Luzon, you could see this magnificent mountain to your, if you're going from what's this, from the north going south, it is in the left side.
Mhm.
So there are a lot of stories about Maria Makiling. Like, one famous Maria Makiling story was this guy who got lost in the forest, and he was asking for direction, and I think he did something good, something to maybe save a bird, a wounded bird, or a wounded animal.
Mhm.
And then Maria Makiling gave him a ginger. And then, and then when Makiling disappeared, when he looked at the ginger in his pocket, it was actually a nugget of gold. So this guy went
Awesome.
back to search for more ginger. And when he went home, they were not ginger anymore.
Mhm.
They were neither gold too. They were poop.
Ah. That's a lesson in greed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah, folklore, sometimes it is connected with respecting nature also.
Mhm.
The spirits are really guardians of nature. Uh, then Nono sa Punso, there's also another story. There was this teacher who this teacher a story about a teacher who wanted to expand a classroom,
Mhm.
but there's this ant hill, and then she said, like, remove it. And so it was removed, classroom was extended, and then she got sick.
Right.
At first they thought that she was pregnant. But her, what's this, her belly became big, and then in the end it was not actually a baby. Yeah.
It was a creature, but not a baby.
It was not a baby. It
Huh.
was filled with termites.
Whoa.
Yeah. But these are stories.
Sure.
I think these stories were told for us to really respect.
Right.
Like you, there are things that your eyes couldn't see, and it's good for us to be conscious of these things, or else we will have some consequences.
Mhm.
That makes
Mhm,
sense.
mhm.
So what about, like, UFO experiences? Did anyone ever tell you about stories like that when you were growing up?
UFO experiences, no.
Mm.
But recently, when I was in high school, there were already stories about it. Famous story about UFO that I can think of is Saint Elmo's fire. If you're
Mhm.
familiar with Saint Elmo's,
Yes.
we call it in our language San Telmo.
Mm.
In the middle of the ocean or in the middle of the sea, and all of a sudden, this great ball of fire will emerge, and then you know, so and I think that's connected to UFO or what? Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Um,
Amazing.
Hmm.
I know this doesn't have anything to do with like folklore or stuff, but you should tell them about the boy who stole the horses.
Actually, I'm going to write a book about it.
You are?
Yes, I will entitle it "The Legend of Kuya Hu."
What
So
is it?
he was talking about my experience when I was 4 years old and my brother was 6 years old.
Mhm.
So my aunt, my one of my aunties, she had someone courting her,
Mhm.
and this guy, his work was he was in the field of transportation, carriage,
Mhm.
a horse, and early in the morning he would fetch my auntie in the market, in the rural area. If you want to get the fresh ones, wake up early in the morning, go to the market. That's when people are just preparing to open their stores or start selling their produce or catch, and so you can get a good bargain. Like, there's what we call buena mano is like the first sale. I'll
Mhm.
give it to you in a very good price because it will bring me luck, something like that.
Right.
Yeah, so this guy would fetch my aunt early in the morning. So they would arrive as early as 7 o'clock in the morning when the sun just started to rise. And because he was courting my auntie, he would stay for a while, drink a cup of coffee, talk about life,
Mhm.
and then I and my brother, who got hooked with Western movies, we were thinking of ourselves like cowboys. So if you see a horse, that's a symbol of a cowboy.
Sure.
Absolutely.
So this horse was really tame, and that guy would not even tie the reins. He,
Mhm.
he would just wrap around a post, and then the horse will not run away.
Uh-huh.
And then there was a day that I and my brother went to it. I took the rein, I removed it around the post. I untied it, and then we were pretending to be cowboys. He was my passenger, and I was the driver.
And you're 4.
And I was 4 years old. Yes, yeah, I was 4 years old, turning 5, and then I got the whip. They leave the whip that, like, there's like a tube in a carriage, and then they put it there.
Uh-huh.
And then I took it, and they pretended that we were riding the horse. Accidentally, though, in the process, the whip touched the back of the horse,
Mhm.
and Pavlovian,
Yeah, for
conditioning.
sure.
You feel something. If you're a horse, you feel something in your back, so you have to run. So I started running, and my brother jumped out of the carriage immediately before the horse could take off. It's hard for me to jump because I was holding the reins, and I was holding the whip, and so I could remember the horse was picking up its speed, and I remembered in those cowboy movies, to stop a horse, what do you say? Ho ho.
Oh.
Now my brother, I call him Kuya.
Uh-huh.
So I was screaming, Kuya, Kuya, ho ho, Kuya. Oh, so that became my nickname. I was tormented by my neighbors for a long, long time. But I would say like when the horse was running like after traveling quarter of a mile, there was even early in the morning there was this lady who was washing clothes and saw me, and she ran, and then she was screaming like, there's a boy, there's a boy. There's a boy being carried by the horse. And there were farmers, another quarter of a mile, there were farmers, farmers in our village woke up early in the morning. They start working at around 4:30 in the morning, and then that was 7 o'clock. So they were resting. They were done with their work,
Mhm.
and they were having their cup of coffee and bread, and then they said like, oh, so they stopped the horse.
Okay.
They were able to stop the horse, and then of course, small village, people were blaming me. Why did you do that? Blah 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 blah. Of course, I couldn't hear anybody anymore. I couldn't remember who said what. Because from a distance, I could see my father carrying a whip, and
Ooh.
I became a horse.
Eee.
Wow.
And my father was an old school.
Mm-hmm.
Discipline was really a discipline.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I never regretted that. I never had a bad feeling toward my father because of it. Maybe if somebody experienced that, it could have been really traumatic.
Mm-hmm.
Because he only stopped whipping me after I peed. Yeah. But ever since, his teaching of never touch anything that's not yours.
Yeah. for
You've
sure.
never stolen a horse since then.
Never saw even less than a horse. No way. No way. Yeah.
And he probably didn't do that all the time, so it was much more
Oh,
impactful.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the legend of Kuya Hu.
And was the man upset with you?
He was so upset, of course. Like, yeah. If that happened in nowadays, maybe all of this expletives could have been spoken. Of course, that's his life.
Yeah, exactly.
That's his business. And all of a sudden, when he went out, the horse was gone.
Oh my
Like-
God.
It's worse than carnapping.
Did you have to apologize to the horse?
No, I have to apologize to that guy. I said like, I'm sorry, I'm really sorry. We were just playing, and we thought that it would stay. My brother didn't get the beating that I had.
Mhm. Well, he bailed.
Yeah. He bailed.
I
yes.
wonder if you, because of the nature of all this, if you hadn't apologized, whether you would gotten some kind of illness until you did apologize, because that seems to be the recurring theme,
Yeah, it
Yeah,
could be. Yeah,
sure.
I don't know. Maybe yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's that's one condition, that there's always like a reparation
Mhm.
component of
Mhm.
apologizing, or what damage that you've done. You have to repair it. You have to replace. It's not even replacing. Actually, it's really repairing.
Mm.
Uh, uh, and again, when I connect that nowadays in our society, there's a lot of acknowledgement of fault
Mhm.
that has been happening, but the will, because I think the reparation is really the will component of an apology. Thinking, feeling, willing. Thinking, that it's wrong,
Mhm.
and then you feel bad about it, and then you say sorry about it.
Mhm.
But after that, then what?
Mhm.
There's no reparation, and there's no resolution. There's no transformation, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Ha-
interesting.
If my father did not, I think if I was treated differently, like nowadays, it's okay. You're
Mhm.
Yeah.
maybe I am not the person I am right now.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So would you say that that's probably the most important lesson that you learned in your culture was that process?
Reparation.
Reparation, yeah, that's a big thing. Yeah, it's a big thing in my family. Yeah, yeah.
And that must have been a great culture shock to come to America where something like that doesn't seem to be important at
It
all.
is. It is.
You
It
think?
is. I would say like it is different, and you're right. It shocked me a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, because there's a lot of justification, I think, that people have for their actions to get out of taking responsibility for it, as
Yeah.
opposed to owning up to it, which
Yeah.
is the more ethically sound thing
Yeah.
to do.
Don't get me wrong. Also, the next generation in the Philippines right now, they have totally different
I'm
way
sure.
of looking things like this.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, if they have a fault, maybe they could, especially right now with the presence of another person to intermediate, like
Mm.
talk to my lawyer, or
Yes.
let's go to the chieftain or what. And gone were the days when you did something wrong that you really approach someone directly and you would really say sincerely that you have to replace if something got lost, or you have to repair if something got broken.
Yeah.
So it's the consequence element that is missing now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is there anything else that you want
This
me
is
to
a very good conversation. It's not only about folklore, but
No.
it is really something that has that is connected to more personal things. Actually,
For
this is
sure.
great.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's important.
And how do you impart that as a teacher
Mhm.
now? How do you impart your culture and your knowledge to your students that maybe come from a different culture and maybe a different
Mhm.
familial background?
Yeah. Like for example, right now, what I'm really doing, and I think Arvo can attest to this one, is really when there is an event that happen uh, that may cause conflict or may cause misunderstanding.
Mhm.
I would like to see them. I mean, I would like them to see it from a lens of describing really what happened,
Mm.
because nowadays, you know, like you tell me what happened. What do you mean by this person is mean? What do you mean by this? You label somebody, and I want you to describe whether your description is really what you're trying to say
Yeah.
Mm.
based on what you have observed.
Mhm.
Because nowadays, it's easy to say or put labels on someone,
Mhm.
but can you tell me why you're labeling that person someone?
Mhm.
I have a student right now who, if you don't agree with him, he would say you're a meanie. First grade.
Yeah.
Meanie, and of course, you know, at the back of my mind, oh, I'm really laughing hard at the back of my mind, of course. But I'll say like, what do you mean by meanie? Well, because she calls me words that are meanie, like what? I don't know, but it's just like, also it's coming from your feelings, yeah, these feelings, and then I would say like, hey, maybe you need to play more. Or did you eat well? Did you eat breakfast today? Because sometimes
Mhm.
you know what's that?
Angry.
Hungry. You're just hungry.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and that's the one that is really missing nowadays in our in the children nowadays, the ability to discern, to describe before
Mhm.
jumping into a certain conclusion.
Yeah, yeah. Because perception is almost just as important as what you're perceiving.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because you superimpose your
Mm-hmm.
state of mind, your
Mm-hmm.
feelings, how your reactions to what somebody does. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I wonder what part of that is Waldorf education and what part of that is your culture. Because what I see from you just in observing is that you do a lot of question asking as opposed to telling someone what to perceive.
Mhm.
Do you think that that comes from your culture, or is that Waldorf, or a blend of the two?
I would tell you that it's a blend of the two.
Mm,
But the environment that I grew up in was traditional,
mm,
and I was also young during that time.
mhm,
So the best choice was no choice, and in fact, that is a Waldorf aspect.
Mhm.
For
mm,
younger children, the best choice is no choice.
mm,
Yeah, if you give children freedom at a young age, like for example, before they could even develop their sense of conscience, that's a big chip on
Yeah,
their shoulder.
exactly.
mhm.
That's so heavy.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
for example, you want to choose your own clothes. What color? This one, this one. The child doesn't have the capacity to discern until maybe when they're this one, if they have passed like 9-year chains, or they're around like fifth grade,
Mm,
I would include them like, what do you, if they ask like, what do you think, they become part of the decision making process, but you still make the decision, of course. And then later on, when they, like, I have Irene right now, she is now 14, turning 15.
mhm.
And then she would say, I want this. Okay, by all means, you can have that,
Mhm.
but not now. Not yet. Not yet. I was teaching her how to drive. And I said like, how come you can't have your own car? You know a little bit of driving right now.
Mhm.
And then now she understands that even if you know how to operate on something, it doesn't automatically mean to say that you can have it.
Mhm.
Or if there's something that you already understand, but it's more than just understanding, but there's a sense of responsibility to it. Yeah.
I think in these days, kids are allowed to choose things that have a lot more weight to them
Mm.
than you're talking about clothes and stuff
Mhm.
like that. Things that have much more long-lasting
Yeah.
effects.
It
Yeah.
seems like it causes a lot of anxiety too for a little
Of
child.
course.
I've heard parents say, "What do you wanna have for dinner?" And then
Mhm.
you just see the blank look on the child's
Of
face
course, yeah.
because
Cupcakes.
that seems like a lot of pressure for a child.
Yes, yes. And if they will say something to you and you don't give it to them, why did you ask it in the
Yeah,
first place?
exactly.
Yeah. Arvo could attest to this one when we're teaching, when I'm teaching them. Sometimes it's really more on questions. I would ask them, so what do you think? This is the perspective of this person. There's another perspective about a certain incident or a certain part of history. What do you think? And there's no right or wrong answer right now, because in the end, you guys in the future will make which one is right and which one is healthy and unhealthy for you.
Mhm.
We will be gone by then.
Indeed.
Yeah, yeah. I would not tell you to follow what I based on, but I could show you my experiences.
Mhm.
Mm.
It's up to you for whether you accept it or reject it. I would still respect you.
Yeah.
We could still have fun. We could still have maybe have a bottle of beer when we become friends.
So how many years have you been teaching in the Waldorf school system?
Yeah, since 2000, formally since 2012.
And in those 12 years, do you feel like you have seen shifts in the children and their attitudes and how you interact with them?
Okay, here's the thing that I see about education. Children will always be children wherever they are. The adults teaching them are the ones who have changed.
Mhm.
There's a dictum that I always believe: if you want to change the world, change the children.
Mm,
But if you want to change the children, change the parents and the significant adults around them.
I love
So
it.
so there is a shift among with the behavior of the children, not because really of the children, because
Mhm.
in the early age, children just imitate,
Mhm.
right? And then later on, sometimes they bring this imitation even when they're already like old folks. They weren't given the opportunity to think by themselves.
Mm.
Now, if we give that opportunity in an appropriate way,
Yeah.
because sometimes it's too early and they don't know how to handle it.
Exactly.
Mhm.
So there are different steps, and that's what I really that's what I'm really passionate about, because I've seen it with my children.
Mhm.
I notice you have Irene and you have Inigo. Do you see that raising a boy is very different from raising a girl?
Definitely. Yes, definitely. Irene, she would go to the corner, read books, play with toys when she was young,
Mhm.
and that's all. And then we have Inigo right now. He would still read, but he is jumping all around. He muscles. Yes, that and in their class we really have like they love rough housing.
Mhm.
Yeah, so it's totally different. Hmm.
Would you say one is easier as a man than the other, or are they both have their challenge?
I wouldn't say easier. They're just different, and the way how we approach them therefore should be also different. It's not the same. What it was applicable to Irene may not be applicable to Inigo, and that's a challenge,
Mm.
because you will have sibling rivalry. They're like, why are you treating him differently? Like, yeah, what we do is we have to explain it to Irene, because she was the one who could at least right now understand
Mhm.
how things should work. But of course, it's hard for her to accept, because also at this age, that rebellion is also very common.
For sure.
Like they think they're already adults and they have the right to be adults, but not yet.
Um,
Yeah.
remember when we were like in fourth or fifth grade and we used to go out and just wrestle in the field all recess
Mm-hmm. Yes.
while the girls just sat on one of the spools and
Yeah.
talked.
Yes, I remember that. Even when you were in middle school, like the way how the things that you were talk talking about, as classmates, the girls they love Taylor Swift, and then
Yeah.
and say, Mr. De Leon, please save us. Yeah, so that's
How is she adjusting to being out of the Waldorf Prairie Moon school system? Is she enjoying it?
she is really enjoying it. She's loving it. When she invited you to the concert, you could see how joyful and cheerful she was. But the lovely thing also is that she is not forgetting where she came from,
Mhm.
Mm.
which is very, very important. Yeah, there's the connection not only to the school, but most especially to people that she spent time having that journey with Prairie Moon.
Mm.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
yeah. Arvo is one of them. Yes.
Yeah, I think
Mm.
Nico was busting at the reins to get out into bigger pastures, and he didn't really appreciate Prairie Moon until he was a year or two out of it, and he looked back and went like,
Mhm.
God, yeah, that was so fantastic. Whereas Arvo, I think he realized about the year before he left that this is going to be ending. I'm savoring this now. I'm going to miss
Mhm.
this. I'm
Mhm.
really appreciating this.
Mhm.
So he kind of
Yeah.
woke up in like before the dream ended, and
Mhm.
that sounds that I mean, that just sounds so dramatic, but he saw what it was worth and how valuable it was in
Mhm.
real time, whereas Nico needed a little hindsight to do
Of
that.
course, yeah.
I bet if Nico had an older brother that went to high school before
Yeah.
him, you'd have the same
Probably.
Okay.
Yeah.
realization.
Of
Yes.
course.
Yeah,
Yeah.
indeed. Well, anything Anything else that any other stories you want to share? Anything else you want him to expound upon that he talked about in class? Any more questions that you want to ask?
I don't remember any of the stories that you told me. I think that's all of them.
All right.
I guess how I would love to end it is for you to what would be your message for parents and also for children in the coming ages? Like how do you see the world? What do we need to do to make the world a better place?
I would say give the children a sense of discomfort. Challenge them, expose them to something uncomfortable. Make them experience hardship. Build resilience. Don't overshelter them, overprotect them. Expose them that would give them joy, and also expose them to things that would make them cry. Balance things.
For sure.
And I think if you have both experience, you will know, children will know what it feels like to be in a certain situation, and they will know how to act on it. That's what I can say. Because right now, I think one of the things that really shocked me also when I came here is I've never seen a culture where children are very powerful.
Oh, yeah.
Mm.
I've
Absolutely.
never seen that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Only here in the United States. I haven't been to other countries. This is the second, but I've encountered different people in the Philippines, and the way how they deal with their children is totally different.
Yeah. Yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Mhm.
Well, Mr. De Leon, I just want to thank you so much for taking the
Indeed.
time
Yes.
to do this.
We can do it again.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Maybe another topic.
Yes, I would love it. I
Yes.
would absolutely love it. It was a
Yes.
real honor to speak to you and ask you
Absolutely.
questions and for you to share your personal history with us.
Yeah.
I
Well,
really appreciate that.
Very valuable.
It's an honor. Thank you so much. I've learned a lot from this experience.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
We definitely have to do it again.
And
Okay.
we still have to do our meal, our shared meal, and our ping pong tournament too.
And
Sure.
and next time I don't have to be here, so you can uncensor yourself.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.